11:58 p.m. just hours before my brother's wedding. I got a text. Elena, we've decided to keep the wedding really small. You don't need to come. No explanation. No hesitation. Just a soft erasure like I was never really part of this family. I'm Elena Ray Duval, 33 years old. The weird daughter in a picture-perfect Texas family. They called me a failure, left my office job, live alone in the woods, drive an old Jeep, and do all that useless therapy and meditation stuff. Bah. But here's the thing. No one knows I'm the founder and CEO of Havenstone Retreats, a chain of luxury wellness resorts hidden deep in the Colorado mountains. No one realized that while they were laughing at me, I was running a multi-million-dollar empire. And the venue where they're hosting the wedding? I own it. When the family decided I didn't fit their upscale aesthetic, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just made one phone call. And everything started to crumble. This isn't just about a wedding. It's a story about being dismissed. About being uninvited from the table. And about the quiet power of the one they all once called a failure. This is, at my brother's wedding, they said I wasn't good enough, so I shut down the resort I secretly owned. And you've never heard a comeback. This ice cold. I sat alone in the kitchen of the mountainside cabin where everything, from the oak table to the espresso machine, had been hand-picked by me. The soft amber light from the ceiling reflected off the granite countertops, casting a calm that felt artificially peaceful. On the table was next month's planning deck for Havenstone Retreats, the luxury retreat chain I built from nothing over nearly a decade. But right now, everything felt frozen. The phone buzzed gently. I picked it up. A text lit up the screen, from a number I knew all too well. Hey Elena, we've decided to keep the wedding simple and intimate. You probably don't need to come. No question mark. No hesitation. Just cold, clinical certainty. The sender was Avery brother Ethan's bride-to-be. The woman who smiled when I was around but never quite managed to hide the disdain behind her overly lined eyes. I read the message again. Then again. Maybe to them, this was just a small adjustment to the guest list. A polite way to avoid diluting their perfect family image, but they forgot one detail. The wedding venue, the luxury retreat with a private hot spring, a Japanese Zen garden, and a glass ballroom facing the snow-capped peaks? The one they booked 6 months in advance and called their modern nature dream. The one they showcased all over Instagram, with captions like "Where art meets nature?" I built it. And I'm the only one with the power to cancel it. I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. Not angry. Not hurt. Just that familiar hollowness, the kind you feel when your own family never really believed in you. For years, I wondered if I was just too sensitive. Maybe my lifestyle was just too different, living off-grid, surrounded by trees, hosting emotional wellness retreats, far from noisy parties and empty conversations about personal branding strategies. But no, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a choice. A deliberate erasure. I stood and walked to the large glass door overlooking the outside. It was dark, but the moonlight danced on the surface of the still lake, casting a silver glow. Beyond that, the mountains loomed cold and quiet, just like that message. If they thought I'd beg, make peace, or shrink back just to keep the family peace, then they never knew who I really was. I crossed into the home office on the other side of the house, the room where I signed multi-million-dollar deals, hosted clients from across the globe, and sometimes sketched ideas for our 4th retreat currently under construction in Montana. I opened my laptop and quickly called Keisha, general manager of Havenstone East, the exact venue for Ethan and Avery's wedding tomorrow. Her voice came on after 2 rings, still bright with energy despite the late hour. Boss, everything okay? Big thing, I said crisply. Cancel the Morrison, Avery wedding. Full refund. And note in the system. No future bookings from the Morrison or Avery families. Keisha paused for a beat, then said, I had a feeling. Do you want this handled by the book or with extra flair? By the book, I replied, calm and clear. But make sure they know this directive came from ownership. I paused, eyes on the event schedule glowing on screen. And Keisha? Yes? Update tomorrow morning staff meeting. I'll personally lead the briefing on tightening our vetting process for next season's wedding partners. Got it. I'll call back once the vendors and logistics team are notified. I hung up and felt lighter. Maybe that feeling didn't come from payback. Maybe it came from, for the first time in years, not staying silent when I was disrespected. I didn't let them define my worth. I didn't let them shape a version of Elena that never existed. The wall clock struck midnight. I sank back into my chair, eyes on the screen filled with new emails. Contract reviews. A keynote invitation for the Ecotourism Summit in Switzerland. A quarterly report for the 3 properties currently expanding. I queued up a soft jazz playlist, poured myself a cup of hot tea. Outside, the wedding hadn't been cancelled yet. But by morning, the first message they'll get won't be from me. It'll be from my system. And by the time they realize what's happened, their dream wedding will be nothing but wilting petals, drifting beside the lake, where I laid every stone by hand. I woke up at 6:17 a.m. before the alarm had a chance to ring. Morning light filtered softly through the ivory linen curtains, gently illuminating the oak-covered room in a warm glow. Birds chirped in the forest outside with their usual familiar melodies, but this morning, every sound felt swallowed by the cold weight waiting quietly in my chest. I didn't check my phone right away. I knew it was probably blowing up. Maybe Ethan had called. Maybe Mom had texted, her voice always lingering between guilt and pity. Maybe Avery was in full meltdown mode, humiliated in front of her in-laws, the ones who constantly called themselves tastemakers of refined living. I slipped on my robe and headed to the kitchen. The espresso machine usually auto-started at 6:30, but today I needed something stronger. I poured a dark, double shot and sat down at the wooden table still strewn with the open financial plan from last night. Q2 revenue projections glowed on the screen. Havenstone Retreats, the name I coined in a cramped apartment at 26, now had 4 operating locations, 3 under construction, and 2 more just approved by strategic investors. We had over 190 full-time employees, plus nearly 300 seasonal contractors. In my world, I was the decision-maker. The one responsible. The person who signed off on every courtyard stone, every plush towel in the spa, every restorative meal served to VIP guests. And yet in their world, I was still that oddball Elena. The girl who dropped out of law school to run off to the mountains. The girl who showed up to Thanksgiving in muddy boots and an unbranded sweater. The girl who, every time she tried to speak about something meaningful, would get talked over by a wine recommendation or housing prices in Austin. I'd tried explaining my work. When I opened my first retreat, I told Mom, excitedly, that a health and wellness magazine had interviewed me. She just nodded and asked, "Oh, so you're teaching yoga now?" When I landed my first corporate wellness contract with a major natural skincare brand, Avery listened, then smirked. Cute, like freelance stuff, right? Ethan was never outright cruel. He was always the nice one, never said anything offensive, but also never stood up for me. "You know, Avery's just detail-oriented," he once said, after she commented I was off dress code at their engagement dinner. I'd grown used to that kind of vague exclusion. The polite kind. Like being invited but ignored. Being in the family photo but always on the far edge of the frame. For a while, I thought I should try harder. Be more relatable. Talk about real estate, fashion, weddings. But eventually, I realized I don't need to beg for a place in the world they built, because I built a world of my own. And in that world, I didn't just have a place. I had power. The phone rang, snapping me out of thought. I turned and looked at the screen. Mom 6 missed calls. Ethan 4. Avery 11 messages, all in all caps. Keisha, just 1 message. It's done, all clear. I opened Keisha's message. Attached was a PD fan event cancellation notice, short, polite, and incredibly professional. It had already gone out to the clients, with CCs to every vendor and third-party service. The catering, AV, decor, spa, even the reception desk team had been given withdrawal orders. One final line made me smirk slightly. Per directive from executive ownership, Havenstone East will no longer accept events affiliated with Morrison or Avery Holdings going forward. Oh. I set the phone down and stepped out onto the porch. It was cold, but the early sun had started streaming through the tiers of pine trees. In the distance, a few couples were meditating by the lake, unaware that just steps from them, one of this season's most anticipated weddings had just been wiped off the calendar. No slamming doors. No warnings. No revenge. Just one command. One decision. One signature from the woman they once pushed out of the picture. I tilted my face to the sky and took a long, full breath. My brother's wedding wouldn't happen as planned, but my morning was still filled with sunlight, coffee, and peace. They thought I was an outsider, But they're about to realize. The stage they've been performing on was mine all along. 7:52 a.m. I was reviewing the reservation system for next week's VIP guest schedule when the phone rang this time. It was Ethan. He was calling on FaceTime. I didn't answer. A minute later, a message popped up. Do you even know what's happening right now? Then, right after. Avery's losing it. Mom's crying. Everyone's calling Havenstone and no one's answering. I set the phone down. I didn't reply, I didn't need to. Everything that needed saying I'd already said with action. And, to be honest, I was tired of explaining myself to people who never truly listened. I opened my laptop and logged into the internal system. The Havenstone Retreats media team had already posted the official statement on the website. We regret to inform you that the event scheduled for the 16th has been cancelled due to a last-minute decision by executive ownership. Full refunds have been issued, and replacement options are available upon request. Clear. Sufficient. Professional. I scrolled over to next week's booking calendar: 3 days of retreat programming for a group of Korean investors. Then over to the finance tab, preparing for a Zoom call with partners in Dubai about the Havenstone International Expansion Project. I knew the event Ethan and Avery had planned was important to them. But to me, it was just a booking in the system. A cancelled item like any other, with one key reason. The client violated the core values of our leadership. The doorbell interrupted my thoughts. I glanced at the security screen. It was my mother, Patricia Duval, wearing the old beige coat she always brought out in winter. Her hair was neatly brushed, but her face was lined, tired, worried, and frustrated. I opened the door. She didn't greet me. Just looked at me, confused, disappointed. Elena, she said softly. What are you doing? Did you really go through with this? I tilted my head. Go through with what, Mom? The wedding. Avery says the venue's cancelled. All the vendors pulled out. I've tried calling other places and everywhere says they're full or won't explain. Were you involved? I stepped aside and gestured her in. Would you like something to drink? Chamomile tea? Or maybe something stronger, espresso? Elena. Her voice snapped. Don't deflect. This is a family matter. It's your brother's wedding. Elena. 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 I sat down on the sofa, arms folded. This is a business matter. A client violated our conduct policy toward executive ownership. So, per protocol, the booking was cancelled. She fell silent. That answer clearly went far beyond what she'd expected. Executive ownership? She repeated, puzzled. I nodded. Do you know who owns Havenstone Retreats, Mom? Her gaze dimmed. She looked around the cabin as if seeing it for the first time. The framed Japanese calligraphy on the wall. The walnut wood furniture beside shelves filled with over 100 books on psychology, design, and wellness. The Italian espresso machine in the kitchen. The office in back, monitors glowing with real-time financial dashboards. I saw it hit her. Slowly. Quietly. But clearly, for the first time, she was really seeing the daughter she always thought of as the strange one. Elena. Her voice softened. You actually own it all? I didn't respond. I stood, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder, a set of official ownership certificates for Havenstone East, Havenstone Central, Havenstone Mountain, and the 2 properties under development in New Mexico and Oregon. I placed them on the table, one by one, like pieces on a chessboard. She picked one up. Her eyes scanned the bold text in the top corner. Elena Ray Duval, founder and chief executive officer. No one spoke for a long time. My mother looked down at her hands, then back at me. So, you're the one behind all of this? I nodded. Not just behind it, Mom. I run it. I make the decisions. Every client agreement, every partnership policy, every event we keep or cancel. She sat down, as if needing to anchor herself to something sturdier than the trust she'd just realized had long been misplaced. Why didn't you ever say anything? She asked, voice trembling. I smiled faintly. I did. You just never really listened. The room went quiet again. Outside, wind rustled through the pine trees. The scent of lavender tea filled the air from the diffuser. My mother lifted her head. So, can you restore the wedding? I looked her directly in the eyes. I can. But I won't. They didn't want me there, Mom. And now, they'll have to plan a wedding without help from the one person who could have made it happen. My tone wasn't angry. It wasn't sharp. Just honest. Cold and clear, like this morning's snow on the peaks. She said nothing more. Just sat there, still holding the paper. She didn't cry, but her eyes, they belonged to someone who'd just realized they'd lost something precious and never noticed until it was gone. And in that moment, I knew. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the weird little sister. I was Elena. The woman they should have known. Long, long ago. 9:05 a.m. When my mother left the house, her eyes still held shock. She didn't scold me. She didn't beg. She didn't say anything else, just walked out like someone who'd missed a train they'd always believed would wait for them. I stood in the doorway, watching until her old SUV disappeared behind the pine trees. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone rang. This time, it was Ethan. I answered. "What the hell did you do, Elena?" He didn't even try to be calm. I lifted my tea, keeping my voice steady. "Good morning, Ethan. Don't pull that Zen crap with me. You know what's going on, don't you? Avery's crying. Mom can't breathe. The entire wedding team's vanished. What the hell did you do?" I set the cup down gently. "You want the honest answer?" "Obviously." "Then here it is, I canceled the event. I'm the one who signed off. I'm the one with the authority. And after getting Avery's text last night telling me I wasn't welcome at the wedding because I didn't fit the tone of the event, I decided the venue no longer fit my values either." Silence on the other end. I continued. "You said I didn't belong. But no one considered that the place you're using to showcase your refined taste belongs to the very person you just excluded." "Elena." Ethan's tone softened. "You didn't have to go this far. You know how much this means to the family. Avery was just being exactly who she thinks I am. Like the rest of you." I cut in. "You didn't push back when she sent that message. Mom didn't object when I was cut from family photos. And Dad? He hasn't asked me a single question about my work in 3 years. To all of you, I'm still the dropout who ran off to heal her spirit in the mountains." He sighed. "Elena, I'm sorry if you felt that way. It's not if, Ethan. It's fact. I was treated that way. And now I'm doing what anyone who's been dismissed should do. I'm refusing to let people profit off my success while disrespecting me." There was a shuffle on the line. It sounded like Ethan was walking or handing the phone to someone else. Then Avery's voice came through sharp and hoarse, like someone who'd been crying hard. "Elena, you need to fix this right now." "No," I said plainly. "Do you have any idea how many people are flying in? We've got guests from New York, Napa, even Canada. The food's been ordered. The flowers are done, the dresses are fitted. You can't just destroy everything." "Destroy?" I repeated the word like tasting something odd. "Funny choice. You banned me from your wedding. And now you're upset I didn't let you use my property as the backdrop for your perfect photo shoot." "Elena," she snapped. "You're making this all about you. You're being petty, selfish, childish." I gave a soft laugh. I'm being an adult. Because an adult knows their boundaries. And mine is this. I don't host weddings for people who uninvite me from them. "You'll regret this," Avery hissed. "You think your little resort gives you power? You think canceling one wedding makes you queen of the world? It's not a little resort, Avery. It's a network." I cut in one last time. "And you picked the wrong person to underestimate." I hung up before she could say another word. A moment later, a text from Keisha popped up. "Avery just called the front desk screaming, demanding to speak to someone with the authority to reverse this stupid decision. I told them exactly what you said. The decision came from the CEO. And there is currently no appeal process." I smirked. Classic Keisha. The phone rang again this time, from my cousin Elena, the only person in the family who once asked, "So what is Havenstone Retreats?" With actual curiosity, not sarcasm. I answered. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked. "Everyone's freaking out. My mom said you canceled the wedding? People are saying you're having a breakdown?" I let out a breath. "I'm not having a breakdown, Elena. They're just in shock. Because the person they thought was a failure turns out to be the one holding all the cards." She went quiet for a moment. Then softly asked, "Do you want me to say something, like, maybe if they understood you better?" I smiled, gentler now. "No need. But thank you for asking. I'm okay. And this time, I'm going to let them figure it out on their own." I ended the call. Settled back into my chair, turned toward the view beyond the porch. Morning mist still clung to the slopes of the mountain. The sun was fully up now, lighting every branch, every leaf. Everyone else was still scrambling, calling venues, pleading with restaurants, burning through favors they thought were powerful. But soon they'd realize everything they needed was already part of the family. They just spent too long looking down on it to see it. And now, they'll have to learn to live with the consequences. 11 a.m. While I was in a video meeting with the executive team at Havenstone Central discussing our winter marketing strategy, my phone suddenly became the command center of a full-blown family crisis. Messages kept flooding in. Calls stacked up. My voicemail lit up with inbox full. One message actually made me laugh out loud. Cousin Drew. Everyone in the family group chat is calling this an emergency intervention for Elena. They think you've had a breakdown. I sign. I leaned back in my chair, propped my feet up on the desk. A breakdown? Number. A breakdown is when you lose control. Me? I was orchestrating this entire storm from a quiet room with the quarterly report showing record high revenue open on my screen. At 11:14, I received an email from Havenstone's PR team. Hi, Elena. A few major wedding blogs just reached out asking why the Morrison Keller wedding was cancelled last minute. We've stuck to the standard no comment response, but we should be ready in case someone connects the family link. I typed a short reply. Maintain silence. If pressed, simply say, the decision was made by senior ownership for internal reasons. No further comment. Then, a FaceTime call came in from my grandmother. I answered. Grandma Morrison, age 82, appeared on screen in her olive green knit robe, silver hair in a tight bun, and the stern Thanksgiving face I'd known my whole life. Elena, she said slowly. The family thinks you're depressed. I almost laughed. I'm fine, Grandma, not depressed. I'm just running a company. She tilted her head, peering closer at me through the camera. The wedding venue it got cancelled, right? That was you? Yes. Because Avery told you not to come? I nodded. She sighed. Well, serves them right. It took me a second to react. What did you say? Serves them right, she repeated, firmer this time. From the engagement party, I knew that girl was fake. And the whole family just treated you like a shadow. Nobody asked how you were, what you did, where you lived. You'd just sit there, eat your veggies, smile politely, and disappear after dinner. Of course, everyone thought you weren't doing much. I sat quietly. Not angry. Not emotional, just stunned. Someone in the family finally saw things for what they were. I built an entire luxury retreat network, I said softly. Did you know that? She nodded slightly. I do now. And I'm going to tell them. I shook my head. No need, Grandma. They'll figure it out on their own. As soon as the call ended, I opened my laptop and pulled up the HR dashboard. At that very moment, my family, a group of people who believed they had the world figured out, were spiraling like the planet had suddenly stopped spinning. My mom had been assigned gentle persuasion. My dad was handling the financial assistance if Elena's struggling angle. Aunt Carol was trying to secure a backup venue, not realizing she was calling locations owned by Havenstone Retreats under alternate brand names. A text from my cousin Rebecca gave the full update. Hey, Aunt Carol just called Lakeshore Haven. The receptionist said, our system is not currently accepting bookings from parties affiliated with Morrison Keller. Aunt Carol thinks we've been blacklisted. And I laughed out loud for the first time all day. Not out of pettiness, but because, for the first time, they were feeling what exclusion actually felt like. And for the first time, I got to see what it means to not fight back with noise but let the system speak for itself. At 11:46, Ethan called again. I didn't answer. A message followed immediately after. Please, Elena. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the reply button. But I didn't tap it. Not yet. They'd spent 6 years dismissing me. Today, they can spend a few hours learning who they underestimated. I set the phone down and stood to pour more tea. On the table was my meeting agenda with representatives from a Swiss investment firm. Next week, I'd be flying to Zurich to sign Havenstone's first international franchise agreement. And here, my family was still scrambling to salvage a wedding. They themselves destroyed the moment they told me I didn't belong. 1:07 p.m. While I was in a virtual meeting with the management team at Havenstone Mountain, discussing the expansion of our floating meditation pavilion, a message from Keisha lit up my screen like a slow-burning bomb. Your family's calling all the properties in our system like crazy. I've instructed the front desk teams to decline any bookings linked to the names Morrison or Keller. But it seems they still don't realize the entire network belongs to the same group. I turned off my camera, excused myself from the meeting to handle an urgent matter, then leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. They still didn't get it. They still thought I was just the little lady running a retreat. They had no idea that Havenstone Retreats was an entire ecosystem where every location, every employee, every vendor was handpicked and connected by a single principle. Respect the person who built this system. I picked up my phone and opened the internal admin app. With just a few taps, I saw the incoming call logs, 27 calls from my family to various properties in the network. Part of me found it funny, but another part felt the sting. They truly had no idea that no matter which number they dialed, every call landed in the palm of my hand. Then, exactly at 1:11 p.m., Keisha forwarded me an email with an attached audio file recorded from a call made to Lakeshore Haven. The voice on the recording was my father's. I put on my headphones and hit play. "Hello, this is Mr. Morrison. I need to urgently book a wedding for tomorrow. I'm willing to pay extra if needed. Our family had some issues with our original venue. Thank you for contacting us, sir," the receptionist replied politely. "Unfortunately, we are unable to host events for parties affiliated with the Morrison or Keller families per instruction from senior ownership." What? Senior ownership? Who gave that order? "That information is confidential, sir. But the directive is marked as top-level internal priority. This is a family matter. Who would do this to their own flesh and blood?" I stopped the recording, removed my headphones. That question. They should have asked themselves years ago. Who pretended not to hear me when I said I was building a company? Who talked over me when I mentioned closing a major investment deal? Who mocked my Jeep as poverty chic without ever noticing the imported custom dashboard inside? Who gave me discount lingerie coupons for Christmas because they assumed no one would ever love me? They say I'm hurt, that I'm lashing out. But no, this isn't revenge. This is correction. They've been living under the illusion that I needed their pity, that I was the low note in the symphony of our accomplished family. They built a world around that flawed assumption. But truth always waits for the right moment to speak. A message from my cousin Rebecca lit up. "Hey, Aunt Linda just called asking if you're okay. She thinks you might need a therapist." I swear I pushed back, but they think you're doing this out of jealousy toward Avery. I typed back. "Thanks. Tell them to wait until this afternoon. Everything will be clear." I had scheduled a call for 3 p.m. A call I had personally arranged, inviting Keisha, my corporate attorney, my CFO, and, if necessary, one of our biggest event clients to confirm the scope of our operation. I wanted them to see with their own eyes and ears who I really was. Not the girl who runs a retreat. Not the failure little sister. But the woman coordinating hundreds of people, managing tens of millions in revenue, and deciding the fate of every stone in the wedding they were now scrambling to salvage. And if they felt humiliated? Good. Not because I need to prove my worth, but because they need to understand. Silence is not weakness. And someone underestimated when she stands won't need to shout. She just stands. As steady as a system. 3 p.m. I sat at the desk in my private office on the second floor, where sunlight streamed through the skylight and cast soft beams across a wall filled with maps of Havenstone retreat locations from Colorado to Oregon. A cup of herbal tea sat neatly to my right. My phone was connected via Bluetooth to the speaker. Every move had been calculated. I tapped to join the scheduled Zoom call. The screen split in half. On one side was my family: mom, dad, Ethan, Avery, Aunt Carol, Uncle David, and my grandmother. They were crammed around the familiar dining room table, each face drawn tight with tension. On the other side, Keisha in a crisp white blouse, poised and sharp. Next to her, Elaine Woodley, Havenstone Retreats corporate attorney, who had represented me in 3 multi-million-dollar deals. Beside her was Jason Clark, our CFO, and finally, Nathan Kim, a calm and polished strategic partner from the South Korean luxury retreat group. I turned on my camera and smiled. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here." No one spoke. Only Ethan shifted in his seat, glancing around like he still didn't fully understand what was coming. I nodded at Keisha. She began, her voice clear and professional. "Good afternoon. I'm Keisha Torres, Chief Operating Officer of Havenstone Retreats." As noted, today's meeting is to clarify concerns regarding the cancellation of the Morrison Keller event at Havenstone East and to confirm ownership and decision-making authority within the organization. Elaine picked up smoothly, her voice steady and commanding. I can confirm all facilities under the Havenstone network are legally owned by Duval Holdings LLC, whose sole shareholder is Miss Elena Ray Duval. All event approvals, cancellations, and client vetting decisions require direct authorization from the CEO's office. Avery frowned. Wait, Duval Holdings? That's Elena? I looked straight into the camera. Yes. I'm the founder, owner, and executive director of this entire system. From the Aspen property to the Glacier Lake retreat. Every guest room, every buffet table, every cup of ginger tea planned for your wedding was approved by my office. Silence. Total and absolute. My mother covered her mouth. Aunt Carol's eyes widened. My father squinted at the screen, as if trying to decide whether I was being serious. Nathan Kim leaned in politely, offering a warm smile. If I may, Havenstone is one of our top-tier retreat partners. We've hosted events for high-level executives, and Elena has personally overseen every detail. Jason added. This year's projected revenue is $34 million, with a return on investment margin of 42%. This isn't a side business. It's a precision-run enterprise. I leaned forward, my voice low but unwavering. Ethan. Avery. When you sent that midnight message telling me I wasn't welcome at your wedding because I didn't fit the atmosphere, because I made people uncomfortable, did you have any idea who you were talking to? No answer. I turned my gaze to Avery, whose face was flushed red. You said I'd disrupt your aesthetic, that I didn't belong. And yet, you didn't realize the very space you planned to walk down the aisle in was created by the woman you just shut out. Avery opened her mouth, but I raised a hand gently, stopping her. I didn't cancel the wedding out of spite. I canceled it because I have principles. And one of those is simple. If I'm not invited as a guest, I'm not required to be your host. I looked across the screen at them all. I don't need an apology. I don't need anyone to shout, I was wrong. End timbre. I need one thing, the truth to be acknowledged. My grandmother, silent until now, finally spoke, her voice soft but clear. We never really asked what you were doing, did we? I met her eyes, my tone gentler. You weren't the only one, Grandma. But at least you're listening now. Ethan looked down. You're more incredible than any of us ever imagined, Elena. I'm sorry. I nodded. No words needed. None left to say. After a beat, Keisha concluded. With that, we'll close this meeting. On behalf of Havenstone Retreats, we wish your family the best in securing a new venue. As previously stated, all locations in our system are currently unavailable to any individuals connected to the event in question. I ended the call. One by one, their faces disappeared from the screen. But in my mind, I still saw them this time, not with pity in their eyes, but recognition. I sat quietly for a moment. No smile, no tears. Just a calm rising from within because something in me had finally stood up. Not to claim victory, but to say to myself, you're no longer the shadow in that family, Elena. You're the light. 4 p.m. I powered down the call, stood up, and pulled back the curtains to look out at the pine forest behind the house. The late afternoon sun filtered through the branches, casting long shadows across the damp earth. A gentle breeze carried the scent of peppermint from the medicinal herb garden behind the cabane of the signature features I personally designed for Havenstone Mountain Retreat. Every detail here had a reason. Just like the timing of today's decision. Not to strike back, but to redraw the lines. The phone rang again. I didn't rush to answer. Caller ID. Ethan. I hesitated, then picked up. His voice was noticeably softer, none of the sharpness from this morning. Elena, I don't even know where to begin. I never imagined you built everything we saw today. I know you're angry, I know you're hurt, and now, I need your help. I said nothing. Let him continue. Avery's completely falling apart. Both families are blaming each other. We haven't found another venue that comes close, certainly not in one day. And Havenstone. You know, you designed it better than anything in Napa. Please, Elena. Just open it for one day. You'll have full control. Name your terms. I narrowed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. What did you just say? I asked. I mean, whatever you want. Just tell me. I smiled a smile I hadn't expected. It wasn't smug, it wasn't bitter. It was peaceful. You know what, Ethan? For the first time in my life, I realized I don't have anything left to prove. I don't need anyone to understand me. I don't have to explain that I'm not just teaching yoga in the mountains. And most of all, I don't need to negotiate for respect. Elena. I raised a hand, even though he couldn't see it. I'm not reopening the retreat. Not because I'm petty, but because I finally understand my own worth. And if someone can't see that, they don't get access to what I've built. I paused, inhaling deeply. The last time I came to a family gathering, I was mocked for wearing linen pants. Mom said I looked like a shaman. Avery called the dish I brought birdseed. No one asked why I left early. Why I was always busy. Why I chose to live differently. And now, they're begging for space in a world I carefully designed. Thinking a few late apologies can rewrite everything? Silence on the other end. I lowered my voice. I'm not angry, I just don't want to share what I've built with people who once decided I didn't belong. You don't have to do it for me. Do it for Mom. For the family. I shook my head. The family needs to learn what accountability looks like. I'm not that old version of Elena anymore, Ethan. I'm a woman who built an empire, and for the first time, I'm living like it. I ended the call before he could respond. Moments later, a text came in from Mom. After all this, how will you face the family again? Did you really have to be so harsh? I started typing. Not harsh, just fair. And if it's hard for you to face someone who finally learned how to protect herself, maybe you should start by reflecting on how the family treated me for the past 10 years. But I didn't send it. I deleted it. Then put the phone in a drawer. Because I realized I didn't need to explain anymore. They would have to live with the truth. The one they once dismissed doesn't need to yell, doesn't need to scheme, doesn't need revenge. She only needs to say number. And for some people, that's the most powerful word they'll ever hear. I stepped out onto the porch. The late breeze was gentle pine, peppermint, and birdsong blending into a melody that felt like it had been composed just for me. In a world where I once felt invisible, today, I chose who gets to enter. And who doesn't. 6 p.m. The sky had begun to turn violet, streaks of golden light slipping across the mountaintop, casting a fading glow through the pines like a delicate ribbon about to vanish. I sat in a rattan chair on the porch, hands wrapped around a mug of hot cocoa, eyes fixed on the lake reflecting the day's final rays. It had been a long, chaotic day, but, strangely, I felt at peace. Not because someone had lost. Not because I held the power. But because for the first time I didn't shrink. I didn't fold. I stood firm and protected my boundaries. A quiet victory, but a real one. The hum of a car approached from the distance. Not loud. Not urgent. Slow, like the driver was weighing each turn. I knew who it was before the headlights peeked through the pines. Mom's old SUV. The engine stopped. The door opened. She stepped out, carrying nothing but a light jacket and a laminated photo in from Thanksgiving, when I was 14. The only year I was in the center of the family photo between Ethan and Dad. I didn't speak when she climbed the porch. She didn't speak either. We just sat, side by side. My cocoa steaming. Evening air brushing her sleeves. After a while, she finally spoke soft as the breeze across the lake. I didn't know you'd come this far. I didn't turn. Because you never asked. She nodded, as if she'd expected that answer all along. Today, when I saw you on that screen, when I heard everyone call you CEO, founder, I felt small, like I'd missed an entire journey. I turned toward her. Her face bore the creases of time, of years spent working, worrying over dinner bills and light bills. But it was also the face of someone too busy to notice her daughter had always been a little different. I never hated you, Elena, she said. I just didn't understand. And when I didn't understand, I stayed quiet. But staying quiet too long turns into distance. I set my mug down. You don't have to apologize. But you need to know this. I'm no longer the daughter who tries to fit in by staying quiet, enduring, or pretending she's fine with being overlooked. I'm not going back to being anyone's shadow. She looked at me. And for the first time there was no judgment, no defensiveness, no filter. Just quiet regret. And recognition. I'm not here to ask you to reopen the wedding, she said. That's your decision. I'm here to ask for something else. A chance to truly get to know you, starting today. I stayed silent. A breeze passed through, making the pine branches whisper like faraway applause. You don't need to forgive me, she added, her voice lower now. But I hope you'll let me walk beside you, in the life ahead, if you'll allow it. I tilted my head, studied her for a long moment not to judge. To feel if this was real. Then I gave a slow nod. I don't need an apology. But I need action. If you want to know who I am, I won't hide it anymore. But I won't bend myself to fit anyone ever again. She smiled. And somehow, her face looked lighter. Then, tell me about Havenstone, she said. From the very beginning, like I haven't missed a thing. I took a deep breath. All right, I said. But it's a long story. It started in a tiny cabin in western Montana. One winter, I got snowed in with 2 bags of oats, a pot of foraged tea, and a book on Japanese architecture. And so, I told her. No holding back. No skipping over the parts that once felt too complicated to explain. For the first time, I told my mother the story of the life I built. A life I once believed she'd never want to hear about. And for the first time, she didn't look away. Not even for a second. 9 a.m. the next morning. I was reviewing the weekend schedule for Havenstone Central when Keisha sent a brief message. Avery just posted a crying story, saying the wedding was sabotaged. Wedding blogs are circling, want to respond? I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and gazed out the large window where the pine trees swayed gently in the breeze. I wasn't surprised. I knew Avery wouldn't go quietly. She wasn't someone who accepted being outshined, especially by the one person she once labeled the family failure. And now, after losing her dream wedding and face in front of her in-laws, crying on social media was the only move she had left. I opened Instagram and checked Avery's profile, a perfectly curated world of filtered photos, silk dresses, and hollow inspirational captions. And sure enough, just like Keisha said, there it was. A short video clip. Avery, sitting in her car, eyes red, voice shaky. We planned for a whole year, and it all collapsed overnight. Someone deliberately made sure the wedding couldn't happen. I won't name names, but everyone in the family knows where this came from. I watched, not with anger. Not with pity. Just a quiet sadness. Not because she was upset, but because even now, Avery still couldn't grasp that she wasn't sabotaged. She was simply facing the consequences of years spent dismissing others. I texted Keisha back. No response. Let them talk. The truth doesn't need defending. An hour later, my cousin Elena messaged. Hey, something came up. Today there's a same-sex couple getting married at Havenstone South. They posted a photo and tagged the location. A few comments are asking, wait, is this the replacement for Avery's wedding? I laughed out loud. While my entire family was scrambling through the network trying to resurrect a cancelled wedding. At one of my own properties, a completely unrelated couple was celebrating their special day. No drama. No exclusion. No one told they didn't fit the vibe. I replied. Send them my congratulations. If they're open to it, gift them one extra night in the wellness suite. A wedding present from the CEO. There was something poetic about today. 2 weddings. One full of control, image, and ego collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. The other pure, joyful, and quiet, celebrated at the same kind of place my family once mocked as a retreat camp for burned-out weirdos. I didn't speak out. I didn't post a rebuttal. I just kept giving what was deserved to people who valued it. At 11 a.m., Keisha forwarded me an email Avery had sent to our customer support system. I demand to speak to the highest-ranking person in your company. I will not accept this treatment. If I'm not given the venue back or a public apology, I'll take this to the press. Keisha's note beneath it. Should I reply with the screenshot of her message banning you from the wedding? I smiled and shook my head. No need. Anyone who knows the truth can see she's fighting the consequences of her own decision. I stood, grabbed my wool coat, and stepped out of my office. Outside, staff were setting up artisan booths for the autumn wellness fair. I walked over to a couple taking photos near the herb garden. They recognized me probably from the website and thanked me for creating such a beautiful space. I simply nodded. Because that is the real reason I built all of this. Not for my family's validation, but to create a space for people like me. People who were once overlooked, underestimated, pushed to the edges of the photo. A place where they could walk in, hold their heads high, and be welcomed for exactly who they are. And today, as another wedding took place at Havenstone full of genuine joy, while the one I was excluded from remained in disarray. I knew this much. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to keep living right. 6 p.m. I had just returned from Havenstone South, where I stopped by to congratulate the newlyweds. They invited me to raise a glass with them beneath a canopy of fiery red maple trees, gathered around a modest dinner table. I politely declined the meal but stayed for a few minutes to snap a photo with them, shared a laugh. No one asked if I was the CEO. No one asked for a resume. They simply offered me a slice of homemade apple pie and thanked me for creating a place they'd remember forever. On the drive home, my phone buzzed repeatedly. A message from Mom. The family is gathering at Aunt Carol's tonight. I hope you'll come. No talk about the wedding, just dinner. I sat in the car, hands on the wheel, heart sinking just a bit. My whole life, I'd been the quiet shadow at those dinners sitting near the edge, spoon in hand, forgotten in mid-conversation. So many times I had arrived carrying stories I wanted to share. I just signed an investment deal. Or, I bought my first plot of land in Montana. But I always folded those stories back into myself because no one noticed I was there. Tonight, they invited me. Not to argue. Not to plead. Just to be present. I didn't reply. I just turned the wheel toward Aunt Carol's house. When I walked in, dinner had already begun. The kitchen was as warm as always, roast meat in the oven, mashed potatoes on the stove, silverware clinking softly. But when I entered, the conversation stopped. Aunt Carol peeked out from the kitchen, offering a sheepish smile. Dad stood and gave a nod. Avery sat at the far end of the table, eyes red, but no longer angry. Ethan stepped forward and pulled out a chair for me. For the first time, I didn't have to find a seat at the edge of the table. Mom walked over, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Thank you for coming," she said. I nodded. Didn't speak. Didn't need to. During dinner, no one mentioned the wedding. No one brought up Havenstone. They asked me about Montana. About the first retreat. About why I used cedar wood in the meditation rooms. Ethan shared the moment he saw my interview on an international travel channel. And how he didn't recognize the quiet little sister from back then. Huh. Aunt Carol laughed. "For years I thought you just moved off to grow herbs or something, Elena." I smiled. I did grow herbs. But I sell them to wellness clinics for $80 a jar. Laughter echoed around the table. Not forced. Not polite. Just people slowly relearning how to listen to each other. And maybe, to me. Near the end of the meal, Avery stood up. Silence fell. She looked at me, no smugness, no pride. "I used to think you were petty. The kind of person who holds grudges. But tonight, I finally understand you were just living by your values. And I'm sorry I didn't see that sooner." I nodded. No grand words needed. Forgiveness doesn't require a spotlight. It just needs space. For those who've been wrong. To try and become better. After dinner, I stepped out to the back porch, where Aunt Carol's old wooden swings still creaked in the breeze. Grandma was already there, knitting a scarf. "Tonight felt different, huh?" she said. I smiled. "Very different." "You know why?" she asked, glancing at me over her worn glasses. "Why?" "Because tonight, they didn't show up to see what you had. They showed up because for the first time they knew they needed to hold on to you." I said nothing. Just sat beside her. Inside, something was easing. Like I had finally shrugged off an old, heavy coat I didn't realize I'd been wearing. Sometimes, you don't need to demand your seat. You just sit where you've always belonged. And let the world learn how to rearrange their chairs around you. 1 week passed. No scandal broke. No articles appeared. Avery's wedding faded into silence, as if it had never been planned at all. The family didn't bring it up again, and I didn't need anyone to praise my decision. Because to me, the greatest thing I gained wasn't respect. It was peace. And in that quiet, I started to hear my own voice again. A voice that had long been muffled by effort, resentment, and the constant hunger for approval. On Saturday afternoon, I returned to Havenstone East. Not to work, but to sit in the circular meditation space. The one I built, by hand, with my architecture team. No weddings. No guests. Just me, a pot of chamomile tea, and sunlight slipping gently through the wooden beams above. I thought about all the people like me. Those called strange. Those overlooked by their own families. Those excluded for not matching the vibe. Oh, do. And who, after staying quiet for too long, were mistaken for having nothing at all. I used to be that girl. But now, I'm the one who remained. Not because I was stronger, but because I stopped trying to become a version of myself others could tolerate. That evening, a small envelope appeared in the Havenstone mailbox. Hand-delivered. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter. My father's familiar handwriting. Elena, I'm not good at apologies. But I want you to know. Everything you've done makes me proud even if I didn't have the courage to say it. When you were little, building popsicle stick houses, I laughed, thought it was just a silly phase. But now I see. Every one of those tiny homes was a seed for what you've built. I was wrong to stay silent. Wrong not to ask. But today, I still have time to see you. And if you'll let me, I want to be part of your life in the way I should have been from the start. I folded the letter. I didn't cry. But somewhere deep inside, something old and frozen quietly melted like snow on a mountain's edge at the start of spring. The next morning, I visited the very first Havenstone location in Montana. The cabin was still there now, a VIP wellness suite for guests seeking emotional restoration. I sat in the same wooden chair where I once wrote my first business plan, my fingers tracing the old scratches on the desk. I snapped a photo and posted it to my personal Instagram with a simple caption. Once, I was uninvited from a wedding for not fitting the vibe. Today, I build places where people don't need permission to belong. The post received over 30,000 likes in just a few hours. Not because it was beautiful, but because it spoke to people who had once been made to feel like they weren't enough. Later that night, my phone rang one last time. An unfamiliar number. I answered. A gentle voice on the line. Hi, this is Elise from Quiet Power Women magazine. We'd love to feature your journey from being excluded from a wedding to creating spaces where thousands rediscover themselves. Would you be open to sharing your story? I smiled. Yes, I said. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about what happens when someone stops shrinking to be accepted and chooses instead to build a world where they are the center. I looked out the window. The pine forest still stood quiet, unwavering. Just like me, I never needed anyone to give me a seat. Because I had already laid the foundation, built the walls, and raised the roof. And I choose to open the door only to those who respect it. This story doesn't end with applause. It ends with a woman sitting in the world she built, smiling. Because, at last, she didn't need an invitation. She was the host.